Wanted to just basically talk with you about some thoughts that I've been having lately. And so, for those who know me, I'm Leisha of Leisha Thompson Coaching and Consulting, working with individuals and groups, men and women, who are working on gaining some clarity and confidence about just navigating through life. You know how we're on transitions in our life, different phases. We're trying to move from one phase of life to another on occasion. And so that's what I do working with individuals. So I wanted to just talk about how important it is to pause and look at our lives from a different perspective often. And that would be a spirit of gratitude. So in many instances, life kind of just moves really quickly. And during those times, sometimes we don't pause and maybe just take a few minutes just to really think about the things that are going on that are good or for which we are thankful. And so that's what I want to focus on this evening. So, are you the person who sometimes finds yourself busy, always having someplace to be, something to do, someone to talk with, avoiding quiet time? There may be a reason that you're doing that. Have you ever considered what causes that in many instances, if this is a way of life? I'm not talking about when you have a project or something that you really do need to work on, but I mean as a way of life. I bring it up because I've been there and done that, so I know a little about that. I am the person who is continually working on something. So what that has brought to mind is that it's good to create time to be still and quiet, to focus on why we are thankful, why we have gratitude, where is it coming from, and to acknowledge it. So another disruptor could be situations wherein people spend time looking in the social media of other people, and it becomes a habit because they're looking to see what's going on in someone else's life versus being more concerned about our own lives. So sometimes that person's suffering from what we call FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm sure you've heard of it. And then, do your current circumstances actually consist of situations or things that you actually don't even want in your life? Is that you? Have you ever fact checked yourself from time to time and wondered how you even got in a situation that you're actually in? It's good to take a minute just to take time to think through that. So I want to just give you a little quote. I like quotes. I read a lot, and I found one by Alice Walker, the author, and she says, "Don't wait around for other people to be happy for you. Any happiness that you get, you have to create it for yourself." And so that's what we're going to talk about just for a few minutes. I also have a quote from Miles Monroe, who left a significant legacy. So you might look him up if you haven't heard of Miles Monroe. He says, and I quote, "Discontent is the seed of change. You will never change what you tolerate." And then anger actually brings about change in most situations for us. So just think about that. Discontent is the seed of change. So when we're happy and everything is going well, sometimes we're not thinking about if we need to change anything in our lives. And sometimes we take it for granted and we're not even thinking about gratitude. And so a lot of times it does take us being discontent with some phase of our life or angry about what's going on in a situation that we found ourselves in. And that sometimes occurs, and that's what makes us reevaluate and make a decision to actually do something to change the situation. So acknowledging our circumstances is helpful so that we can find gratitude. And so I guess you might ask, why is it important to have a spirit of gratitude? Why is Leisha even talking about why this is important? And the reason is because I do believe in a mind, body, soul connection and live that way. And so, knowing that a spirit of gratitude can help strengthen our immune system, in some cases, it can help to lower blood pressure or symptoms of illness. It can prevent or minimize, even if we are having discomfort, such as aches or pains. A lot of times, when we focus on the good, those things that are positive, and we show gratitude, it helps us to learn to see life from a different perspective. And that's really what I want to emphasize for you. Learn to lead your lives by looking from the perspective of gratitude versus looking at anything that is maybe not what you want it to want it to be, or not looking at it as a negative. So sometimes we get caught up and we just see the negative. Or we all probably know people who, when you see them coming or when they call you, it puts you in a bad headspace because they focus on the negative all the time. And you're really not trying to hear that, if we're being honest. So just wanted to focus again on learning to lead our lives with a spirit of gratitude. And how do we see these possibilities? How do we look for possibilities that are situations in which we are grateful if we're not accustomed to looking at life from that type of lens? So basically, my recommendation is focus on facing our fear if we need to make change in our lives. If we want our lives to resonate differently in a more positive way, or if we're trying to accomplish goals or even change situations and move away from something that is occurring that we've settled with, but we want to eliminate it and create a more meaningful future, face the fear that you may have that has prevented you from actually taking those steps. That's really important. Some people even name what that fear is and give it a name so that when it presents itself, you can actually speak to it, whether that's in your mind or audibly, doesn't matter. Do what works for you, but address the fear, recognize it, and you want to start pushing forward, push through the struggle, push through the need to change whatever it is that you have decided that you need to deal with. So basically, be intentional. But then throughout that process, when you awaken each morning, it's a good thing to actually awaken and put your mind on a spirit of gratitude. The things that are in your life, whether it's present or past, but remembering and acknowledging the things that cause you to be happy and joyful is important. So an example could be when you're getting ready in the morning for work or whatever it is that you plan to do for the day, look in the mirror and look at yourself and say out loud, audibly, things that you are appreciative of. That's a good way to get your day going and set the tone at a higher level of positivity. And so then, how do you push through when things aren't the way you actually want them? A recommendation there is just thinking back to other situations in life that may have challenged you. Focus on what you did in that situation to overcome whatever it was. And then remember how good that you felt when you did it. So you want to focus on what you have and not what you don't have. So another way to think of this is look at your current situation, whatever it is, and then think about the thoughts about how you feel emotionally in that situation. And I'm not talking huge situations. This can be anything in life that you are wanting to progress and move forward in. So how does it make you feel by not doing something or not doing anything, really just allowing it to linger? What emotion does that bring up in you? And then when you think about why you haven't done anything, it's important to acknowledge what is holding you back. What's preventing you? Is it fear? Is it just uncertainty? Are you a procrastinator? There are all kinds of reasons for why we don't do what we know we need to do in life. So when we're talking about procrastination, that comes up for a couple of different or several different reasons, but sometimes people actually are suffering from an underlying condition of depression. So sometimes it leads to fatigue or just immobility and inability to actually have the energy to do what's necessary. So that's a different situation. But what I'm really focusing on is when we procrastinate out of fear or just anxiety because we're overwhelmed with what we think needs to be done and we don't know how to start, when to start, and we don't know exactly where we're trying to go. So, those are situations and feelings that can actually be changed if you think of a different thought. So, in other words, instead of focusing on what you don't like or what you know you need to address, why not create a more positive thought of what you want? What are you trying to accomplish? And then think about how you would feel if you were to accomplish what you want. And then think about one action. What one thing, one step can you take today to begin that journey versus allowing it to continue to just sit there with no action? So then that means there's a need to tap into inner power, right? So then how do we do that? What if we've never done that before? I think a good way to start is by determining purpose within yourself and refusing to listen to the limiting beliefs that other people can put into our heads. So a lot of times we share what our thoughts are with friends and or family, could be coworkers, and what do? They start telling you about how they couldn't do it, how they don't understand, and so on and so forth. And the next thing you know, you're agreeing. So, what I want you not to do is to listen to people who put limiting beliefs into the atmosphere. Don't buy into that. That might be coming from a place where they are or where they have been for a long period of time in their own mind, but it's not your story. They're not on your journey either. You want to create your own journey. So, think in your mind what steps you need to take and create one step today, right after we finish with this live, one step that you can take to move forward towards something you've been thinking about for a while and you just haven't gotten off the dime to actually do it. So you want to bounce back from any setbacks. Don't let setbacks control you. So when receiving advice from situations, or when you think back to past situations that you've overcome, reflect on the lessons learned. So again, keeping your mind focused on a spirit of gratitude. In every situation that we've been in, there's always a lesson learned, something that you can carry forward, and it's not always a bad thing. So gratitude, when we focus on gratitude, that can heal a broken heart, that can prevent the heart from actually breaking. Just positivity is what I'm speaking of. Be realistic, but also know that what happens today doesn't have to shape your future. So gratitude matters. A grateful heart is a healthy heart. Teach yourself to experience fulfillment in the gifts that you have, the opportunities that you have. Instead of spending a lot of time looking at TV and looking at the advertising, or when we go on the internet to make a purchase, which we all probably have done during this past year, you notice how the box can create and come back to you and show you what you looked at previously to get in your head and make you start thinking that you need these things. So instead of focusing on what you think you need and you know that you don't, focus on the gifts and the blessings that you've already received, and those by far are much more valuable. So again, being gracious, having gratitude, learn to be intentional about focusing on all the positivity that you have and not being concerned with what you don't have. Acknowledge that a mindset of gratitude can't be bought. It has to reside within you. And trust that good can be found even during the toughest times. Gratitude can result in joy. And then joy is eternal. I am of the opinion. and that the world can't take that away, regardless of what happens. Joy resides within you and I. So if we live our lives leading with the mindset of gratitude, know that it takes practice. You're not going to wake up if you don't have a spirit of gratitude. You're not going to wake up and it's there. You have to work on it. You have to strengthen it, just like any other muscle or any other habit that you want to create. Gratitude falls within that realm. Practice, continue, and then eventually, before you know it, you can train your mind to see things differently and to not focus on what you don't have and the negative things. So look for goodness all around you. Accept what is, and then make conscious choices at all times. Don't be willy-nilly flying through life without a vision, but be conscious about the decisions that you make and make the ones that are beneficial to you for you. Be authentic. And then very importantly, move throughout life on whatever journey you're on, being fearless. Fear is not something that is purposed within us, but we can, if we're not careful, hold ourselves back because we're afraid of the unknown. So you want to tap into whatever it is that gives you strength. For some people, it's faith. It just depends on what it is. It could be your ancestry. In my case, I rely on ancestry and faith. I've kind of talked about that before. But figure out what it is for you that gives you strength and the power to be fearless. Tap into it at all times. And then work with a spirit of confidence. Know that you can. Figure out what you need to. Even if you don't know, still keep taking steps to move in the direction that you want versus doing nothing. That's what I don't want. Don't be the person who sits and suffers in silence. Be confident and then be truthful. Okay, so let's talk about truthfulness. So I'm talking about the truthful with a capital T, which means universal truth. Sometimes truthful and truth with a lowercase t could be your truth. And your truth, let's admit it, is not always really true. So it depends upon where you got the beliefs that you have on a certain topic. Sometimes it's what you have convinced yourself as being truthful, but really it isn't. So let that sit with you for a while. I think we all have manufactured assumptions and limiting beliefs and kind of let them operate within us, only to later analyze it and wonder why you even thought you did, because it's not even real. So remain present in the moment. Again, we're talking about living life with a spirit of gratitude. So being present in the moment and counting your blessings daily. Pay attention to what's going on and be grateful for the things that have occurred. Gratitude is stronger when it's shared. So purposefully verbalize it. People want to know your testimony. You may have something that has occurred in your life that you overcame that will be helpful to someone else. And then trust the process. As you move to a higher level of being grateful, trust the process that it takes to get to that mindset. But by all means, be 100% energetically engaged while on the journey. I don't need to explain that. Energetically engaged, meaning don't be passive. Be assertive. Seek and conquer what you purpose yourself to do so that you can get from one phase to the next. And then have a strategy in mind. Think about it in smaller steps if it's too large to think long term. The point here is move, keep moving toward what you're trying. Think about how you'll feel next year, this same time, if you've had some thoughts today, this evening, and you know what you want to work on, but you do nothing, and then this time next year you still have done nothing, how would that make you feel? So give yourself a new thought. The thought could be that today, or let's say tomorrow morning when you arise, that's the change. Tomorrow is the time to then begin to take the steps to walk in your purpose. And then if you don't know, or you're not sure and can't really figure out how to begin that process for yourself, but yet you are determined to make the changes that you want in your life, and you purpose to do that right now during the fourth quarter of this year, then I invite you to take a look at my website, and there's space there for you to fill in a request that says that you just want to schedule 30 minutes with me for a breakthrough session. And we can talk about whatever your vision is and come up with some strategies to help you. I believe that you already have those thoughts within you. Sometimes it's just a challenge in figuring out and then how to take that step. But you know what you want to do, and you know what you're trying to accomplish. So I am here to partner with you should you desire that. My website is www.leishathompson.com, or you can email me at leisha@leishathompson.com, and we can schedule time to talk. In closing, I really appreciate the fact that you all have taken some time. I see that you're there, and so I appreciate that you spent a little time with me. The last thing I want to say is really important right now at this time in our lives as well. But depending on the state in which you live, early voting has begun in some states. I really encourage everyone to vote. It is very critical that you take that action. It's one that some of us have not had historically. Some didn't have this until a certain time in life. And so it's important that we honor the fact that people lived, died, and so on, so that we all have the right to vote. So please exercise that privilege. And then if you can and you feel willing and able to go to the polls, that's what I'm going to do, is to show up and vote. But for those who aren't willing to possibly take that risk, or just can't for other reasons, then voting by absentee ballot. But I think it's probably wise to take the ballot to the Board of Election, just to make sure that your vote is submitted timely, just so that we can have hopefully an appropriate outcome at the end of this election season. So again, thank you so much for being with me during this time. I appreciate it, and I hope to hear from some of you soon. Thanks so much.